If there's one thing we've learned about business and life, it's that people are the X factor. They constantly surprise us, both in amazing ways and not so much. We're Ben and Syya, and welcome to the Gnaw on This Business Bites podcast. This show is all about real life things we all deal with every day, how they relate to business, and how to make some sense out of our daily chaos. Welcome to the show. And welcome back to another episode of Gnaw on This Business Bites. I'm Ben, and this is Syya. So here is my thought of the day. Innovation isn't a department, it's a mindset. There's way too many people that sit there and say, oh, it's their problem. Innovation's their problem. That's the CIO's problem. That's the CTO's problem. That's their problem over there. The truth of the matter is, innovation comes from everywhere within a company. Because it's not just technology. It's how does that technology infect and affect both people inside and outside the organization? How does that innovation affect you as a person, your team, your department, the company as a whole, and your customers, and possibly external stakeholders like vendors, etc.? You need to think of technology not as something that's out there that does stuff and that, we're controlled by it. We need to control that innovation. We as individuals and we as teams and we as organizations need to sit there and say, how do we make this innovation work for us, our company, our customers, our suppliers, instead of just being beholden of buying something out of the box and hoping whatever that out of the box solution is does the job that we want to do. So, Syya, let's gnaw on this.
Ben, isn't there a saying where it's like, uh, innovation is the mother of all invention, right? When there's a
I haven't
necessity.
heard that, but I like it.
Oh, you haven't heard of that? I think, did I make it up, everyone? No, I'm pretty confident someone said it. I ain't that witty. I'm
Okay.
not that prophetic either. But so here's where my brain is at on this is that like, in one context, innovation and innovating and being innovative are three different things, right?
Right.
But we also have this desire to get the next shiny gadget toy that we think is cool. For example, I literally had a client ask me about creating an AI video for them. That is
Right.
not my forte. That is not my area of expertise. That is not my area that I've ever touched. And quite frankly, I just haven't, quite frankly, I just haven't had time to really
Yeah.
create those types of videos. That being said, I knew it was always on my to-do chart to learn to, whether I choose to use it in my everyday, productions and all that stuff. And I try and I look, people like I understand the value of it. I use AI platforms, a lot of different tools all the
Hmm.
time. But this was a straight up they wanted me to literally create an essence what do you call it? Avatar of a person, a living person. And
Right.
I'm like, time to do some research, right? Now, the equivalent of that is imagine if it's a corporate entity and you have a product marketing team that says, "Hey, marketing department, I need you to create X that looks real," and you're like, "I'm gonna have to create, this is gonna be some technology that our team may or may not have expertise in, right?"
Right.
Or even better, CEO comes down to engineering saying, "I want AI," and everyone's like, well, "AI what?" Right? So yeah, innovate it, make it up, you do whatever, And the answer of that question, I'm trying to, it's like a convoluted dancing way around it, which is you if you have a true need in something, you'll always find a way to solve that problem and create a solution for that purpose. But to quote, buy the next best gadget toy because it's adjacent to whatever your problem is, but doesn't actually
Hmm.
truly solve your problem, that's the problem that, we all have. And that's what we challenge, right? Because the shiny new toy isn't always the solution. The shiny new
Well,
toy is what's popular right now. Perhaps you might need it. Maybe that's not the use case. Or my even personal favorite, it is a great use case, single point use case. So you're spending millions of dollars on a single point use case that may or may not net you any ROI.
well, yeah. And the question is, why are we doing this? The first question is, why are we doing this?
Yep.
What do we hope to gain by doing this? And what are the ramifications of not doing this? I mean, I look at innovation as something that, I'm constantly innovating. I am constantly sitting there going, okay, how can we get better? And that's where I'm thinking about with the mindset. How can we constantly get better, personally, as a team, as a department, as an organization? How do we constantly get better at how do we take a look at technology and sit there and say, not only so it just works for the CTO or the CIO, but it works for the users that are actually, have their hands on this thing every single day. Like, I talked to somebody the other day, and their CFO has said we need a new ERP system. Okay, so the CFO went about and they spec'd an ERP that met their needs.
Hmm.
Wonderful, great, it meets their needs. But they didn't take the time or the energy to find out, does this ERP actually meet the needs of the departments that which they want to interact with? Can you grab all that information that different departments have in different databases and different spreadsheets and different, catalogs, and be able to pull it into this ERP easily? What do the salespeople need to be able to grab quickly and easily out of the ERP? What does marketing need out of this? What does legal need out of this? What does procurement need out of this? So it's not just, well, I think we're going to be better off because we're going to do ERP because it's going to enable me to do my job better. Great. That's wonderful. But you also need to sit there and say, okay, this is a piece of technology that's going to be used across departments and across divisions. How do we create something that is going to be innovative, but it's still going to be useful for the various departments that are going to be using it, and enable you still allow you as a CFO to gather the information that you need to be able to make executive level decisions and be able to steer board level conversations. So it's looking at technology not for technology's sake, but how is that technology used differently by different parts of the organization? And how do we create something that's symbiotic with everybody so that everybody can be, at least if it's not a perfect fit, it's a much better fit than what they're using right now.
I mean, whew, I mean, so I think the challenge for all businesses, right, is you have a business need. The question
Hmm.
is, what kind of timeline do you have and what kind of budget do you have to accommodate it, right? And what is the risk if you do embrace this, whatever cool gadget of the day is? And I think I see the point of at times where companies are trying to stay competitive. They are
Hmm.
trying to constantly operate efficiently. So I don't want to presume or bash larger organizations or even mid-tier and SMB space, right? Where we think as an SMB, like, oh my gosh, if everyone's using, and I'm going to pick on AI, it used to be cloud back in the day, right? But, whatever, am I going to be run over by the competition, right?
Right.
Uh, and so I see the motivation. I understand that sometimes maybe embracing that said gadget may be the nudge that puts you over the competitive edge,
Right.
right? It could be, and I get that. And there's that question for companies, right? Do you organically create that competitive edge, or do you acquire that
Hmm.
said whatever gadget and toy? And there's that third option. Do you find another organization and collaborate with them so
Hmm.
you can get that boost, right? And so I think again, it is an investment that's going to get made no matter what those three options are if a company wants to stay that cutting edge. But at the same time, are you evaluating? Why do I have such a problem with that? Evaluating.
Evaluating.
It's coming out
It's a lot
evaluating.
of syllables.
It's a lot of like tongue evaluate,
Evaluating.
evaluate.
Yes.
Okay, anyway, I digress. Okay, now it's killed my train of thought. Damn it. Okay, so I'm coming back to three options, and businesses have to decide. Like, look, okay, if you do it organically, do you have the internal infrastructure in place for your team to be
Hmm.
able to go with the wind, be free and create, my friend, right? Do you have that entrepreneurship mentality in your organization? Maybe that's a future topic too, my friend.
Very
Um,
much so.
to be able to allow and then give them the budget and bandwidth to prove the the solution
Hmm.
out, right? So I think there is absolute value in it. The problem with organic, though, is you're relying on your internal input, which can sometimes become a bit of a ivory tower vibe if it's not an outsider in, looking in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's your people's. You actually knew them, you trusted them, you vetted them. So there is something to be said about that familial need. They know the business better than anybody else because they've been in the business and they know the weaknesses.
Right.
So I do think that the idea of that innovation in that context can be extraordinarily powerful if you have the time, if you have the budget, and if you have the patience and the risk
Yes.
reward section of it. The problem is that is like a unicorn. Any company that has that, like, and it's usually like big tech companies that you will have a research arm.
Right.
Okay.
They'll have a skunk works department that's what the skunk works department does.
But not all companies are, quote, yes, all companies are tech companies, but they are not creating
Technical. Yeah, they're
technology,
creative
right?
technology
So,
companies. Yes.
so if you're not in that space, you're not a tech innovator in that context, then you're going to probably have to look at the other two options, which is acquire, the
Hmm.
either acquire the company altogether and be like, we're going to absorb you into the Borg, or buy from them. I guess that'd be fourth option then, huh?
Yeah.
But either way. So what you're asking, and I'm just kind of going off on a tangent here because I'm feeling it because I don't want to malign corporate decisions at times because there is a
No.
reason behind it. But I also, in all fairness, also have to I think we have to really debate the fact that what is it that we are willing to risk in our pursuit of innovating for the next best thing for your business.
Well, here's a perfect example, and I won't mention names to defend the innocent, but
Mention names, mention names,
no, a top,
names,
a
names.
Fortune 50 company sold an ERP solution to a university. Happens to be a university that my son goes to. Look it up, you'll find out. I'm not going to mention the name. Well, it was a great solution internally within the department. It was well received. It worked well. This or the other thing. The problem is they were forcing the students to use this technology to do something that it wasn't meant to do, which means pick courses for the following year. And this university has 60,000 students.
Wow.
Within a week of this being implemented, a group of computer science students have gotten together and built a shell. So whenever people went to this technology, it translated the shell so it had the same look, feel, and design as the old technology they had been used to. So what they did is they did a skunkworks project on their own and
Wow.
rebuilt the UX to make it work for the students. Otherwise, it was impossible. People couldn't get it to work properly, couldn't get courses, couldn't get their schedules to line up, etc. So you sit there and say we need to look when we are innovating, we need to take a look at all of our stakeholders
Yeah.
because all of a sudden you took 60,000 stakeholders, which are the ones who are paying you money. These are the ones that are spending money in terms of thousands of dollars each per year, and you're making them bend over backwards to use a technology that is not meant for them to use in the first place. It wasn't designed for it,
Right.
but they built it in and says, "Oh, well, we can do this with it as well because we're going to get the great reporting on the back end." And so you run into these type of nightmares. So we need to think when we are innovating, we have to innovate with a mindset of what are we trying to achieve? Who are we trying to achieve it for? And are we, as you said, are we skunk working this internally? Are we buying out a company? Are we partnering with a company? What are we going to do to make sure that we have the best technology in the place to be able to actually solve the problems we're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And that's my big challenge. My big challenge is that most companies don't look at the overall holistic ramifications of implementing new technology. they don't get enough voices in to be able to look at the technology and say, hey, wait a second, have you thought about this? And therefore, certain departments get left out in the cold, and all of a sudden you have disgruntled employees, you have disgruntled vendors, you have disgruntled clients, and all of a sudden, all those things lead to your company having real nightmare issues moving forward.
This is like a problem that like IT has been fighting since the dawn of time, since the concept of IT department has formulated,
Yes.
which is each department having their own budgets, and then you've got this shadow IT that starts forming because they like marketing is notorious for it. I don't mind picking on marketing. They will buy all these platforms that they need to do creation, et cetera. Well, it requires IT to support it in the infrastructure. And at the same time, if there is no discussion on, hey, we bought this huge, let's say, AI platform. Oh, and by the way, it's going to run on 15 terabytes every second. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's like a freaking like nightmare for IT, right?
Yeah.
So 100%. And I think that's why it's so critical at the CXO level that there's a true understanding of making sure that wherever their departments that they're the head of, that each segment of their leadership is in lockstep with each peer, right? So they
Yes.
understand, yes, I get it. Everyone's got their job and roles and different types of responsibility, but you need to be tight with your peers. So again, this is where great leadership comes into play, where either it comes top down or if it's mid-tier leadership on up, if it's whatever, it's as long as the leaders are leaders of respect and peer in their peerage, it's so much can happen in so many great ways for a business. But we all know the truth though. There isn't. Because you know why? Oftentimes they're fighting each other for the same damn budget. So there's a bit of animosity, right? Or they are on the client side of receiving it and they hate that organization because they feel like they're getting crap customer service. So yeah, no, I think this discussion, if anything, is directed at all executive leadership, and that if you have the opportunity to, make decisions on these types of things, I hate to say it, you gotta look at the man in the mirror, woman in the mirror, and really decide, like, hey, man, like, do I have the setup environment where if we are going to innovate, we are going to drive change, do I have all the buyers in? I forgot what that term is. Do I have all opt-in? Do I have
Everybody opts in. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. I love it. Let's land this plane. I think that we got a whole new conversation coming out of this thing. But let's leave that there. That's a great question to end on. So I'm Ben,
See ya.
and we'll see you soon.
Hey, hey, hey. Thanks for listening to another episode of Not on This Business Bites. If you liked what you heard, we most humbly ask that you like, share, and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to communicate more effectively within your organization, contact Ben at yourbrandmarketing.com or me at brilliantbeammedia.com. We can help you build your community, brand awareness, and personality through digital content and podcasting. We cannot wait to hear from you. So see you next week for another episode of Not on This Business Bites.